guys, this is Nathar at CrowSong Lodge, and I am now on day 25 of Ethony Dawn's 31 Days of Tarot Challenge. I think that's like 6 days from the end, so we're getting there. So today's prompt is, if you had to choose one or the other for the rest of your entire life, would you choose to read tarot decks or oracle decks? Ooh. Now, aside from the argument you can make that tarot decks are all a type of oracle deck, we're just going to ignore that part. I would choose oracle decks. And I know, I'm a tarot reader, and this is the tarot challenge, and I'm supposed to have an allegiance, but hear me out. Tarot decks all have a very specific structure, and if you know me, I get bored. That's how it is. I like variety, and oracle decks is where you can find that variety. Because they're not beholden or required to have any specific system, they can do whatever the fuck they want. And that means lots and lots of variety, because that's what people do. So some of my favorite, I probably have as many oracle decks as I do tarot decks, and that's somewhere between 35 and 40 of each. So some of my favorite of those include the first one I ever got to use, or at least the first one I ever used more than once, which is the Medicine Card Deck by Jamie Sands and David Carson. And this taught me a whole lot about my spirituality, the spirituality that rung true for me and what I really connected with. And of course, as an adolescent girl, that would be animals. And so here we're talking about different animal energies, and this is rooted in rather broad sweeps of Native American beliefs and such like that. And it's really good for experiencing what energies are broadly moving through your life rather than specific day-to-day events. And so I really like that one. You guys have heard me talk about the Enchanted Map Oracle quite a lot, and that kind of addresses the day-to-day events that are moving through your life, quite specifically story elements. So that's kind of a different way of looking at that. I also really like the Angelarium deck. You guys have heard me talk about this one before. Here we're talking about different angels and the way the angel lessons can affect your life. Again, we're talking about broad lessons and energies moving through your life rather than specific day-to-day events. And this one, again, it addresses angels as they actually appear in the Bible and not as the modern construct we've created, which is what I really like, and the artwork is beautiful. Again, here's, I don't know if you guys have heard me talk about this before. It's on my website, but I don't think I've done a video on it before. This is the Children's Spirit Animal Cards by Stephen Farmer that I got through Satyama, and it's very much like the Medicine Card deck, but it's intended to be read for and by children, and it's super easy to read. But of course, like all things, you can make it as complex and nuanced as you want. So this is, eel, and you can see at the bottom it says do the right thing. So that makes it really easy for people to read it, and it makes it a great starter deck as well. And so that's fantastic. And then one of the things that's really cool about oracle decks is that you also have things like this. And I don't know if I've shared this with you guys or not yet, but this is actually a oracle and inspiration deck that my aunt created. And it's all her specific artwork. And so you can see these are really beautiful. Again, they're not required to be in any specific system or format like a tarot card is. And on the back, they have messages like, whenever possible, be kind. Kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. And so you see the message on the back and the beautiful artwork on the front. And so there's a lot of advantages I find in not having a specific system. It really allows you a lot of flexibility on exactly how you want to approach the way you receive your guidance. If you want guidance to be animal energy related, if you want it to be plant energy related, if you want to talk about things in regards to the way the angels speak to it, if you want to talk about day-to-day events, if you want to talk about just about anything. I actually have an oracle deck that I just remembered that I actually gave to a friend of mine that used the language of flowers to give interpretations, and that covered everything from broad spiritual lessons to day-to-day events like expect a phone call later today. And then also oracle cards allow you to cross systems as well, which might be cheating for the purposes of this prompt, but, you know, I'm not that into rules. So, this is a deck that was my mother's, and you can see the cards are really beautiful, and here it says at the bottom, Journey, but for those of you who are familiar with, you can recognize that's Raido of the Viking Rune Futhark, the Elder Futhark system. And, so here's, I believe that's Sewillow. I'm not really good at my rune names. But so these are all, and here's Protection. So these are all rune cards, so it kind of allows you to cross the divination system boundaries by putting the symbols on cards. So this is technically an oracle card deck, but I can still use the runes this way, which is kind of fun. And so I don't know if in this hypothetical situation I'm allowed to use things like tiles or runes or those kinds of things. So by choosing oracle cards, I can still do that. And I might be cheating, but whatever. So that's my answer, and I feel like anything the tarot cards can do can be covered by oracle card decks, but the reverse of that is not entirely true. So that's why I would choose oracle decks over tarot decks. And honestly, if I'm doing readings for myself, which, as you know, if you listen to my videos, is not particularly common, I use oracle decks. I don't use tarot. So that's just kind of how I roll, and if I'm going to be forced to choose between one or the other, I'm going to use the one that I use for me because it's all about me, and that's the way it should be. So that's my answer, and I guess that tells you what side of the centuries-old debate I'm on. I don't think it's centuries-old, though. I think it's a modern one. Anyway, with our CrowSong Lodge, I'm signing out. Bye, guys.